My dear Count, cried Morcerf, you are at fault. You, one of the most formidable logicians I know. And you must see it clearly proved that instead of being an egotist, you are a philanthropist. Ah, you call yourself Oriental, a Levantine, Maltese, Indian, Chinese. Your family name is Monte Cristo. Sinbad the Sailor is your baptismal appellation. And yet the first day you set foot in Paris, instinctively display the greatest virtue, or rather the chief defect of us eccentric Parisians. That is, you assume the vices you have not, and conceal the virtues you possess. My dear Viscount, returned Monte Cristo, I do not see in all I have done anything that merits, either from you or these gentlemen, the pretended eulogies I have received. You were no stranger to me, for I knew you from the time I gave up 2 rooms to you, invited you to breakfast with me, lent you one of my carriages, witnessed the Carnival in your company, and saw with you from a window in the Piazza del Popolo the execution that affected you so much that you nearly fainted. I will appeal to any of these gentlemen, could I leave my guest in the hands of a hideous bandit, as you term him. Besides, you know, I had the idea that you could introduce me into some of the Paris salons when I came to France. You might some time ago have looked upon this resolution as a vague project, but today you see it was a reality, and you must submit to it under penalty of breaking your word. In addition to disguises, it seems that Dante has learned how to do a little soft shoe because he is dancing around, backtracking, and kicking up dust. Before I go into what Dante's response is here, I want to just ask real quick. Albert just throwing out there, Count, Mr. Cristo, your nom de plume, your alias, is Sinbad the Sailor. First of all, Dante doesn't know Albert knows this unless he is counting on the fact that Franz would tell him, which is possible. How does Dante feel about this coming out? Does he expect it here? This is making me watch the rest of this conversation with very, very scrutinizing eyes, because this is where I feel like some plot holes can come up, or that Dumas can maybe do some soft shoe and kicking of his own, because Sinbad the Sailor comes forth from Albert's mouth here in the face of Maximilian. Sinbad the Sailor is the one who saved the Morel family, right? He's the one who signed the letter to Maximilian's sister saying, be here at this time, and she finds the gold and all that stuff. So they surely associate their deliverance with someone named Sinbad the Sailor. This is going to raise a major question, I would assume. So if Dumas does not address this specifically coming up, and I'm not going to speculate, I'm just kind of pointing my finger at some stuff here, then are we to take that Maximilian doesn't put the dots together? That Dante has orchestrated this to the minute point of assuming that Albert would say Sinbad the Sailor in front of Maximilian? Like, that's contrived to go, I'm going to introduce myself to Franz. Franz is going to tell Albert, my name's Sinbad the Sailor. Then I'm going to invite myself 3 months later to a breakfast with Albert, hoping that he's going to invite Chateau Renaud, who will also invite Maximilian Morel, on the chance that Albert mentions the name Sinbad the Sailor in front of Maximilian, and that Maximilian will understand that. I can't imagine Dumas will think we would believe that sequence of events. So this has to be a surprise to Dante. And I'm curious, this is what I'm watching for the rest of this chapter, in this conversation, in this salon. How does this change the dynamic? And is it going to interrupt whatever plans Dante had for finding his way into the property of Fernand? Because I think even I, reading this, am like, okay, Dante, I see what you're doing. You're trying to, like, backstep into the egotist thing, where you say you are basically saving Albert for your own purposes because he was going to introduce you to some of the salons in France, introduce you to Paris society. We don't have a response to Dante yet, but I would imagine one of these men will go, well, what about Franz? Why couldn't he have introduced you to everybody? There does seem to be like a reasonable line of questioning that can really put Dante on his heels here if they really pressed him. I'm curious what that will be. Let's go back to our biog, shall we? Right, I was talking about the people criticizing Dumas for publishing so much under his name, the Dumas industry of stories. This biography goes on to say here, after everyone, you remember the line that Dumas seems to have given himself up, body and soul, to the worship of the golden calf. Remember that? There's another one here that says, everyone has read Dumas, but nobody has read everything of Dumas, not even Dumas himself. So then the biography goes on down here to say that the full list of his published works, running over 300 titles, almost certainly includes a few that he had very little hand in. One of the clearest instances is the novel Les Deux Dianes, that it is a work entirely lacking in Dumas' essential deftness of touch, but that readers could easily be bamboozled into thinking that it came from him, since several of the characters in the book appear in an earlier novel, Ascanio, and Ascanio being a book that there's no argument over Dumas being the author of. So it asserts that Dumas might have been assisted by another author, which I haven't mentioned yet, but Dumas was contemporaries with Victor Hugo of Les Miserables and Hunchback of Notre Dame fame, but a apprentice of Hugo's. My own guess, I mean, and I'm certainly no scholar, as we all know, and haven't read the original manuscripts or can't even read French, so I couldn't even comment upon whether or not how this appears in French. But just knowing how these industries work, having a brief idea in your head and having an entire writer's room of people that can do your bidding, so to speak, I could imagine Dumas just like finding a post-it note one day. I know post-it notes didn't exist in 1800s France, but finding a note, a scrap someday of like an idea and being like, oh, that could be a thing. You know what? Sequels are really big right now. Here, could you draft me up a few things on this and see what comes of it, and handing it off to another writer, and then having that writer come to him with changes or updates or drafts, and Dumas more frequently relying on the discretion of that writer to just complete the project. I can easily see a scenario in which someone barely has their eyes on something, but it being maybe not 100% understood, but kind of understood from the beginning that this was going to be under Dumas' name no matter what. It was just my idea. These are my characters. I've quote-unquote guided you through the drafting process. I think we've all experienced some degree of that in our lives. Anyway, as I said, that's my own speculation, and we know how dangerous speculation is. Okay, speaking of speculation, I am still speculating on what these folks are going to get for breakfast. That's the biggest suspense. Do you think they're going to have toast? And of course, toast is what you call French toast in France, because it's no longer needed to be called French toast, because they're in France. It's just called toast. Hold for applause. Thank you. Oh, you're too kind. Tip your server. I'll be here all week. No, in fact, I'll be here tomorrow. Join me here then. Okay, goodbye. The Countdown of Monte Cristo is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. This show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Theme song by Magic Solo. If you want to support the show and others like it, visit patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.